group photo before our sharing session begins.
Please be seated and look at the photographer. On the count of 3, 2, 1, cheese.
Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. The exhibition Parallel World exhibition from Macau, China, 19th International Architecture Exhibition, La Biennale di Venezia, organized by the Cultural Affairs Bureau, was successfully launched in Venice, Italy. A research project undertaken by the University of St. Joseph is titled Mapping the Evolution of Macau City, under the coordination of the head of the Department of Architecture and Design, Professor Nunu Shurish. The team presents a series of 3D models to illustrate the urban transformation of Macau over the past 450 years. We are delighted to have invited Professor Nunu Shurish to share his insights with us tonight. Please welcome with a round of applause to Professor.
So good evening. Oops. Good evening and welcome to this presentation. Thank you for having me to have this opportunity to share with you our experience in Venice. Thank you for the invitation to Macau Art Museum. So what I'll do today is I'll guide you through this process. So this exhibition is in Venice. We are in Macau. The exhibition is about Macau. And what we're trying to do here is to show in Macau how are we presenting Macau to the world at this stage that is the Venice Architecture Biennale. Today I'll have with me Professor Huijie Liu. He will do brief summaries in Mandarin.
感谢各位来宾，大家晚上好。然后今天呢是我们将展示就是澳门圣若瑟大学关于这个澳门历史城市演变的研究。然后这个研究呢目前正在威尼斯国际建筑双年展的澳门展区进行展览。
So, today we'll talk about parallel worlds. This is the Macau exhibition at the Venice Architecture Biennale. And this presentation is organized into 3 parts. So I try to make it useful for the audience. So we have one part that will explain the collaboration between us in Macau and the team from CAA and from the curators Wang Shu and Wenyu. I'll explain how was the research done in our part of the exhibition, and I'll show you the exhibition, and I hope that you are teased to go there and be able to visit in person. So this is the place. So this is at Arsenale in Venice. So on your right-hand side, you are able to see the Macau pavilion. And if we look closely, there's a photo of Macau, a photo from the inner harbor. So let's try to understand how this came to be. So Macau being presented at Venice Architecture Biennale with this team. So who is doing this? The team is Professor Wang Shu, Wenyu, and the photographer Iwan Baan. So Wang Shu and Wenyu, they are the curators. Iwan Baan is the photographer that is in charge of this book that is presented on the exhibition. And later on, I'll give you a glimpse of the book. And then this was our meeting, the first time that we've met in Macau. And this is the team with Nuno as well for the research part. So today it's with me. So I'll guide you through the exhibition. This is Venice, our exhibition, and I'll walk you through this entire process. So this is our part in the Macau Pavilion, the Mapping Macau's Urban Evolution. And this is the part that was done by CAA. And it's a very interesting project because it's a project that represents Macau with a lot of precision and really looking at the city that we have today, not just how the architects build it, but how people appropriate the city and how people transform the city. So the models are extremely detailed, full of the particularities of the buildings, and this was done in collaboration between our students that took the photos and their students that produced the models, that did all the research. So the presentation is organized into 3 parts: collaboration, research, and exhibition. Let's start with the collaboration. So we'll have a workshop in Macau, photography with Iwan Baan, online collaboration, a lecture in Hangzhou, and then the study trip and the setup in Venice. So this started at University of St. Joseph. So when the team from CAA came to Macau to do the site research, we did presentations with them and we started to collaborate with them in December at University of St. Joseph. Ruijé, can you do the summary?
今天的分享会呢是主要分为3个部分。第一个就是澳门圣若瑟大学和中国美术学院的合作，然后是澳门圣若瑟大学关于澳门城市眼镜的一个研究，以及澳门圣若瑟大学和中国美院一起在威尼斯进行的一个展览。然后首先是关于合作的部分，这张图片展示的是去年2024年12月份，澳门圣若瑟大学和中国美院呢进行的一个联合的工作坊，这个是在澳门圣若瑟大学开展的一个场景。
So the curators had an idea, this idea about looking at Macau, the parallel worlds that exist in Macau. So it's a city that has gaming, it's a city that has an old town, it's a city that has a new town. And they came here to try to really learn about the city. And that's why we created this collaboration between our students and their students to go and engage and discover the city. And we started with few lectures and showing our facilities to create a place that we could work together with. So this is the part of the exhibition that we have that I'll explain a bit later. And here, this idea of collaboration in terms of us showing the urban evolution of Macau and CAA showing the conditions nowadays, this was where this started to really materialize. So with the teachers from CAA, with Iwan Baan, with Wang Shu. And then after this, after the meeting and the workshop at the University of St. Joseph, we moved on to a conference and a workshop that was done based on the research that the students did about Macau. So students went out, each group of students to a specific part of the city, and they worked together to map that part of the city, and then they did a presentation to all of us, teachers and other students, so that they could start to mature their idea and to test their hypothesis.
这个是在这个CURB 这个机构进行的一个工作坊，也是这个联合工作坊的一部分。其中呢，就是王树和陆文宇2位建筑师，还有中国美术学院以及澳门圣若瑟大学的师生，都在这个地方进行了一个深入的互动，从方案的研讨到成果展示，体现了一个跨校和跨区域的合作。
So we were discussing between teachers, students, looking at the presentations of the students, and this was really a collaboration. So the idea started to mature and started to evolve into the shape of the exhibition that you'll see later on again. So presentations by the students had identified areas that looked like uniform areas from the plans. But then when they went to see the real city, they discovered that it was not exactly as they thought. So that's why it was quite important to have a dialogue with us that study and live in Macau, that know Macau in depth, so that this impression that they had could really land on a solid ground. So we were showing different projects that we were doing and different researches that we were doing about Macau. Wang Shu and their team did the same. So this was really a vibrant moment where the ideas for the exhibition started to come together. And we became partners in crime. So all the teachers from CAA and the teachers from USJ started to engage in multiple discussions. And that's why this collaboration is really so interesting for us because it was mutually interesting, this discussion. And then how did we discover the city? So we had this secret. So we had a bicycle. So people were asking, how do they know so many areas? Wang Shu, he never lived in Macau. Wenyu, she never lived in Macau. Iwan Baan is Dutch. How come he knows about this? So they went through all the streets. They cycled with us. So they are not just talking about something that they don't know about. So they've experienced this. So we went through the old town. By bicycle, we can explore faster and we can go further. And we can also always stop at multiple points. So we spent the day doing this. We went to the docks, to the Ama Temple. So maybe you know these places. But we also went to the patio of 6 houses and patio of Illusion. We went to, do you know where this is? Can anyone tell what place is this in Macau? Beco da Ostra. So it looks like you know this place. And we even knock at doors and talk to people. And always with the curators, with Wang Shu, Lu, and Iwan Baan. And after this part, the idea started to change slightly. So it started as parallel cities, and it started then to move to parallel worlds, which is the final title of the exhibition that we have now.
策展团队，包括王树和陆文宇老师，然后 Nuno 教授以及参展艺术家Iwan Baan，他们采取了多种的方式，实地考察澳门的肌理。其中一种方式就是骑行，然后骑行是一个比较方便，然后能随时停下，深入体验城市的一种方法。然后呢，Iwan Baan还用他的独特视角来记录澳门。
So with the discussions with the curator, with the idea of the exhibitor, that in this case is Iwan Baan, and discussing with us, we started to have a dialogue and to discover the city. So we went to the stilt houses in Koloan. We went to the fish markets next to the inner harbor. We went to boats with Mathilde, my daughter. She speaks Cantonese, and she was key to make us go inside the boats. And those pictures are on the book. Thank you, Mathilde. We went to social housing. We went to the new town and to modern buildings. And Iwan really climbed to try to go to see the city from unexpected spots. We went to stilt houses again. We went to the mountains to see the casino city, as is mentioned on the book.
刚才的这些图像展示了，就是这个著名的摄影师Iwan Baan如何用他的独特视角，以一种意料之外的方式来展现和记录澳门，包括这个从日常生活到这个高密度的城市景观，捕捉了澳门多元平行世界的一个真实面貌。
So Iwan Baan walked, used the bicycle, used the car, and also an helicopter to do this book. So you'll have points of view that are very unusual. And then after that, we had online collaboration. So the students from CAA, they wanted to know every angle from every building. And they couldn't do so while they were in Macau. So Leon was also a student that is with us, was also key to go to all the places that they couldn't visit. And he was taking photos and sending the photos to them so that they could really depict Macau in a very precise way on their models. Then we went to Hangzhou to give a lecture. Because they were doing this project about Macau, they asked us to go to really have a collaboration and to share a presentation about what is Macau about. Why are we doing mapping of Macau? And I will share this presentation in a moment with you. But the most interesting thing is that when we went to Hangzhou, we were talking about Macau. We had a great discussion with the teachers and with the students there. But we learned much more than we were to teach there. So this campus is designed by Wang Shu and Wenyu. It's amazing campus. So it's a place, as you can see, each building has a specific shape that relates to the history of Chinese architecture in a contemporary way. And it's really a place of experimentation. So it's a lesson just to go there and to just walk through. We can walk on the outside, so the buildings are close to the waterfront and and to the mountain. So it's just an amazing place to be. And the kind of materials, the exceptional architectural quality, it's amazing. So this was the time when Wang Shu got the Pritzker Prize winner. So this was one of those groups of buildings that made him win it. And it's amazing. Any idea of what is this? On our right-hand side, we have rammed earth, like the one that we have in Macau, in the old walls. Of course, with a different kind of material. And on the left-hand side, we have materials that are from old buildings that were demolished, that were collected and reused to create this school. So while students go to the school, they really have a lesson of architecture. And we got surprised because we do several exercises that are quite similar. So creating pavilions, wooden pavilions. So it's really a place of exploration. And any idea who designed this building? CISA, exactly. So that campus is not just in China, but it's also in the world. So Wang Shu invited Álvaro Siza, the Portuguese Pritzker Prize, to design a building there. And CISA didn't do a Chinese-looking like building. It did kind of a CISA project. You go inside and it looks like you are in Europe. And he also invited another architect that is quite well known by working quite well with materials, Kengo Kuma. So there's also a museum that was designed by Kengo Kuma using the Chinese traditional tiles. It's a single material to do the roof, the facade, the entire building. And there's more. So Wang Shu and Lu, they designed the National Archive. They designed this cultural complex that has an amazing roof that is made also of these materials that were used, that were reclaimed from previous construction, and creates a landscape that is an amazing landscape. And we continue this discussion with their teachers. So this was really one of the highlights of the collaboration was our visit there.
在去年12月，中国美术学院来这个澳门进行了实地调研之后呢，他们还和这个澳门的圣若瑟大学进行了一个线上的合作，然后我们圣若瑟大学的学生呢，帮助他们对很多建筑，就是单个的建筑进行了很多资料的补充，然后呢，在之后呢，就是中国美术学院邀请了 Nuno 教授去杭州进行一个演讲，然后Nuno 教授分享了他的这个参展项目，就是叠加式眼镜的一个研究，然后这个研究呢，Nuno 教授稍后也会分享给我们。然后 Nuno 教授同时还考察了由这个普利兹克奖获得者王树和陆文宇以及这个西扎还有这个魏延武设计的。 在杭州设计的这个建筑作品，然后由此就是双方进行了一个相互的启发。
And then there was the setup. So we've prepared our part of the exhibition, they've prepared their part, and our students and our teachers, 12 students and 5 teachers, went to Venice to do a study trip that will produce an exhibition later on, but mainly to set up the exhibition. So this is our team in Venice. So we shipped the models from Macau. The models were fully produced at USJ in our fab lab with our team, and they had to do the setup there. So our students are on the back. They are laughing because they knew how hard this was. The photos by Iwan Baan, the models by CAA students, setting up this with our teachers, Professor Rui and Professor Philippe and Professor Sergio. And then the exhibition was done. So let's have a look how this happened. The video was done by Wilson, that is with us. Okay, so this was the part that had to do with collaboration. Let me see if I can move to the next. So the next part is the research. So you saw what happened in terms of collaboration. So this was really a project that was made with multiple hands. It was a dialogue between the different participants and also dialogue between exhibitions and between ways of looking into Macau. But the research that I want to focus a bit now is about Macau. So what we did was the Macau urban evolution, and this is a project that has many years, and I just want to show you the background of this project. So this project started with a teaching module at USJ. So at the Bachelor of Architectural Studies at USJ, so we are the only Bachelor of Architecture in Macau, we have one module that is called the Evolution of Urban Landscapes. And this module is a year 3 module where students really need to understand the city and the evolution of the city so that they can position themselves historically and they can position their buildings in a wise way. So this module of urban evolution had more than 50 students over the years, and they all participated on this research by doing something like you can see here. So we started picking up one part of the city, and we tried to understand how that part of the city evolved throughout the centuries. So this started as a sample area and kept on growing to cover the entire city. So what we did was we started with the original maps, and then, so we pick up the original maps, and then we do a 2D representation and then the 3D modulation. But that 2D representation is really rigorous. It's based on current cartography. So it's interpreting the old cartography and transforming it into something that is really accurate. And then we 3D print, and we superimpose in this case, the 16th century on top of the city that we have nowadays. So we can really understand how the city kept on growing over the years. So this is the base project that started as a research, as a module that we teach at USJ.
第二章聚焦了圣若瑟大学的研究，然后展示了在圣若瑟大学的课程体系中，有一门课是专门让学生围绕澳门不同历史时期的3维城市模型，展开这个学习、讨论和实践，体现了一个教学和研究的结合。然后在Nuno教授 领导的这个澳门数码地图的项目中呢，学生和团队成员呢使用了这种数字化的工具制作和分析城市数据，然后展示了这个城市的地理信息和数据的可视化的一个技术运用。
So to do this, we had to also have digital skills on how to do this. So we had a project done at CURB, Center for Architecture and Urbanism, that was funded by the FDCT, that was Macau digital mapping. So we picked up the city and we were able to identify, this was 7 years ago, we were able to identify the different indicators like aging population and where they would be located. So we created this digital mapping that was then placed in the urban observatory, so where we can compare Macau with New York, Singapore, according to the same indicators. So this was a background information that we use to create a basis for what you saw before. And then we did training with multiple people to be able to do digital mapping, to basically create critical mass and capacity. We did a workshop also at University of St. Joseph called Macau Digital Mapping Workshop, teaching these skills to our students and to other people around the city so that they could continue this groundwork that we did.
Nuno 教授领导了一个澳门数码地图的项目，然后呢，是从7年前开始的，然后其中就包括了比较澳门和世界不同的主要城市，通过一些关键的因素作为这个比较的方面，比如就是老龄人口等。然后这个项目呢，不仅有这个圣若瑟大学的学生，还涵盖了许多感兴趣的人士。
We also went through archives, both in Portugal and in Macau, with Professor Sérgio Proença, that is here with us, to do this book that was published by CURB, that is called Macau, India and Timor Urbanism, that picks up, again, old cartography and documents the old plans that were done about Macau, India and Timor from 1934 to 1974. And this was presented in Macau, this was also presented in Portugal. And all this created a base of knowledge and a base of technical capacity that allowed us to apply for a grant from Macau Foundation to do Macau mapping Macau's urban evolution from 1557 until 2022. And this is where we developed the exhibition that you're now able to see in Venice. So what we did on this grant was we picked up, as I was showing before with the students, so we pick up the original maps that we have. As you can see, they don't have a lot of detail and a lot of rigor. And then we superimpose them on the existing cartography. Mountains didn't change. The water line changed a lot, but mountains are still in the same place. So we were able to trace back the original waterfront line. And then we did the buildings at the scale 1 to 10,000, so it's the city blocks. And then we did the 3D. And we did this for each one of the maps that we could find. And this is the basis of the exhibition that we are showing now in Venice. We did an exhibition right at the end of the research grant that we had. And this was the exhibition that Wang Shu, Wenyu were able to see. And they got fascinated by this and asked us to collaborate.
在澳门基金会的资助下呢，这个关于澳门城市演变的项目，从一个学术研究发展为了一个严谨的展览。然后王树和陆文宇教授看过这个展览之后非常感兴趣，然后也就是由此为这个中国美院和澳门圣若瑟大学的合作建立了一个重要基础。
And you're asking me, but Nuno, why? Why are we talking about this? Why is this interesting nowadays? We live in Macau, this is 2025. How is this useful for us nowadays? And that is what I'm trying to show you on the next part. So the city kept on growing, and we kept on adding land to do reclamation. So basically in Macau, we didn't destroy the previous urban fabric, we keep on adding urban fabric. So that this culture of adding, it's the basis of the next part that we're calling additive city. So what we'll do next is tracing Macau's urban evolution. Can you still see this nowadays? So if we think about additive, it's basically increasing or being combined or increasing over time. And then city is a place where many people live that is built by many people. So what we'll do is on the left we'll have the mapping, and on the right we'll have the traces. So the mapping will have those 8 maps. So let's start with 1557. Can we still see something like this in Macau? So if you see the data, it was 2.7 kilometers, 400 people living here at that time. This is the map that we had access to. We were able to trace it like that, to do the 3D. And then there are 4 traces that we can still see today. So there's a port, temple, villages, and the Portuguese settlement. So there's still a port in the inner harbor. Macau is still a port city. The temples are also still here, the Ama Temple. And we have these villages, this wall that separates the Portuguese and the Chinese village in the inner harbor. And we have Beco da Ostra again. We have small villages that were there in the 16th century. And also the Portuguese settlement. So these are things that we were able to trace and that nowadays we can still discover in the city. So I'll be quick. So 1796, we had 20,000 people in Macau at that time. This is the map. This is the tracing. And we can identify from this period fortifications, the Chinese bazaar, the Catholic city, and the city wall. So these were fortifications. So the Portuguese, this was a collaboration between Portuguese, Chinese, and Dutch. But during this time, the Portuguese and the Dutch were kind of fighting. And this fortress is next to military club, and it's still there. We had also the Chinese bazaar, the core central area for commerce in the city. We had the Catholic city, Lilau Square. And the city wall that was cutted, but that we can still see stretches of it in Macau. If we move on to 1866, the population is now 78,000 people. We have a bit more rigor in terms of cartography. We were able to trace back, and we have the inner harbor reclamation, shop houses, gaming, and territorial control. So this was after the Opium War. So the Portuguese government at the time expanded the territorial control in Macau. So we can see the inner harbor reclamation. There was a big reclamation done in Macau at that time on the inner harbor. It's still there. It's this part. This is the Opium House. That is a regularization part of the expansion of the port at that time. This used to be a stretch of the river. We have the Happiness Street that was also built over this period. We have shop houses on the waterfront. And we have pawn shops. So the first architecture, gaming architecture that is quite visible and that changed Macau's urban landscape. And this one that was demolished, so it's still considered heritage, is on the inner harbor, but this was demolished. This is part of the Curb archive of old photos of Macau. And the Chengping Theater, one of the largest public spaces in Macau. And we also have the border gate. So all of these are traces that we can still identify today. 1912. This 1912 is a beautiful map, so much more rigorous than the ones before. We're able to trace. So we'll see infrastructure, urban regularization, outer harbor reclamation, and expansion. So infrastructure, the dock, Dom Carlos I, the Avenida da República that was built in 1911, 1 year before the map. The regularization of the Saint-Malo that was cutted few years after this map, connecting the inner harbor to the outer harbor. The expansion to St. Lazarus that was built just after this period. And 1935. So we have something quite new at this time. So you see ZAP already exists here. So during many years, ZAP was not built. So this part, it's also visible there. So it's all of this. So not many buildings, but all this part that was a new reclamation. And we have a modernization of the city, connectivity, entertainment, and densification. So we have these new buildings that were built like the Red Market to expand the city and to modernize the city. We have the piers connecting Macau to Hong Kong in 1948, a few years after the map. With new architecture, this was the Grand Hotel. It's still the Grand Hotel. It was one of the tallest buildings in Macau at the time. And also densification. So the city kept growing. After this was the Second World War, where Macau almost doubled the population. And then we also have this informal city. So the space was limited, so people started to subdivide flats. They started to also occupy the rooftops. So I'll be quick. Now we are in 1983, so 238,000 people. Macau is already one of the most densely populated places in the world. Cartography is already quite rigorous. And we have still the informality, the Macau Grand Prix, the verticality, and local architecture. So this was a period where, so the city kept on growing, kept on having this high rise, but with a lot of appropriation. So this is part of our urban culture here in Macau. The rooftops continue to exist. We have these expansions and these annexes with coffee shops and restaurants on the public space. Several annexes occupying the public space. We have the Macau Grand Prix. It's a city that needs to have everything in a very compact space. So we can even have a Grand Prix running through our city. And then Macau kept on growing. So lots of high rise, in this case on the next to the Red Market. And we also have local architecture that was quite innovative at that time and that is still shaping the city that we have today. Some examples by TDM by Manuel Vicente, the fire station by Adalberto Tenrego in Taipa, the car park by Vicente Bravo, the fire station again by Manuel Vicente, just to name a few. 1995, the city kept on growing and now we have NAP. So we keep on adding these layers. We have a new town, infrastructure, public space, and we start to have also heritage preservation. So the new town is one of the areas that is covered in the book and in this exhibition. We have new town expanding also into Taipa. We have infrastructure connecting Macau to the world with the ferry terminal and with the airports, with the new bridges. And we also have a public space that is valued as one of the most interesting aspects of Macau's urban fabric. Heritage preservation, so this was a period where many buildings were preserved, and this is something that nowadays is part of our identity, something that we cherish in Macau. And 2022, it's the city where we are, it's the city that you all know. We have the Cotai Strip, we have urban expansion, Greater Bay Area integration and cultural diversification. So we have Cotai. So this was in between two islands, so it was something that there was no land there. It was between Taipa and Koloan, and now it's a new gaming city as explained on the book. We have also quite innovative architecture. We have a new town, urban expansion. And we are able now to drive to Hong Kong, so we are connected to the surroundings. We have this Greater Bay Area integration, but at the same time we have cultural diversification and we have many of the old traces of the city that are still here. Different crafts, people really paying attention to the history of Macau, and that's it. If we're talking about the evolution and what can we still see today, this is it. So for you to have a bit of a glimpse, so we started in 1557, and this is 2022. All that was there, it's still there, but we kept on adding areas. So now to tell you and to show you this, I'll show you the video that Wilson did that is in display in Venice. process, the 2D in computer, then translating into 3D, and later on being printed. Explains the entire process from the 2D to the laser cut 3D print and then assembling of each one of the models that are on the exhibition. Okay, so this was the research part. So this is what you can see in the videos if you go to Venice. Oops. Okay. And now we're getting to the last part of the presentation, that is the exhibition. So what is this exhibition about? And during the exhibition part, we'll give the word to the curators and to the exhibitor, to Wang Shu and Wenyu, and also to Iwan Baan, to explain with their own words how the exhibition came about. So the exhibition has the Venice exhibition with Macau parallel worlds and mapping the evolution of Macau city. We have a book, we have interviews, and then we have the exhibition opening to show you. So this is the parallel world. So it's this city where we are, that it's at the same time a gaming city and an old city, and at the same time also a new town. So there's different worlds coexisting in the same place. So this was the premise, this was the starting point from Wang Shu and Wenyu to address Macau. So this is the patio, and what you can see is that it's a very interesting exercise, because here is documenting the city nowadays. And any idea of what is this? I'll show you later on. So those small models are new buildings that were designed for the local context of Macau, that later on you'll be able to see on the models. So we have documentation of the existing city, and we have exploration of what can our architecture be in the future. So it's very unusual to have something like this. We have the parallel worlds, we have the beginning, the starting of the exhibition, displaying the different colors. The new town is blue, the old town is green, and the casino city is yellow. And then we go to the Macau, mapping of Macau, urban evolution, so our part of the exhibition, always in dialogue with the photos from Iwan Baan, the expansion of the city. What we were documenting before is always in this dialogue. And then we can move to the next room, and you remember that I was talking about them being very precise, documenting the buildings. So the buildings show really the history and the evolution over time. So we have all the traces of use on those models. And you'll be able to see this kind of white. The white ones are done by students and are their exploration of what can be the future of architecture in Macau.
Nuno 教授先是解释了他关于这个叠下式城市的一个研究，就是 Nuno 教授将这个叠加式城市呢拆解为几个关键词，并作为研究的方法论。比如就是叠加代表了这个时间和空间的积累，然后城市呢是他的这个研究对象，然后制图和描摹呢是理解和再现澳门城市演变过程的方法。 整体来看呢，就是通过这个历史地图和三维模型的多视角的展示呢，Nuno 教授想清晰地呈现澳门几百年来的一个叠加式演进。然后第三部分就是一个关于展览的部分，然后这些关于展览部分的图像呢，就是可以带我们进入威尼斯双年展的澳门展区的现场。澳门展区呢，它重点呈现了这个王树和陆文宇策展的平行世界主题，不仅有这个对澳门城市历史演进的记录，还有对这个澳门城市未来发展的一些新的结构和建筑置入的一个探索。
So there's always a dialogue between the photos and the models have an overall image that explains these urban slices. So they call it urban slices that cuts through different worlds. And then if you go and you look a bit more in detail, you'll be able to identify these explorations. So this is the Architecture Venice Biennale. So it's the world stage for architecture. And the students had the chance to really do something quite innovative and to participate on this collective work. So this is very unusual. So Lu and Wang Shu were quite brave and were also quite inspiring, setting up this kind of starting point. So you will see that these buildings are Macau buildings. They kind of try to document as they are nowadays. And then the white parts are these explorations, quite explorative by students. You'll see that the aircon is changing. It's kind of the city is really appropriated by the users. So the image that we have of the city is one that is made by many hands. And this is next to the Portuguese school, and they are proposing a new building next to it, new buildings as rooftops. So I think that this is a quite refreshing take on the architecture of Macau. Not just documenting what we have, but also thinking about new ways for the future.
就是图片中的这些白色的，刚才展示的白色的一些结构呢，就是中国美院的学生对这个澳门的新加建的这个结构和建筑如何介入澳门城市机理的一个尝试。然后就是 Nuno 教授觉得它能带来一些对我们思考澳门城市发展带来一些新的思考。
So for architecture students, they will be the future of our profession of architecture in Macau. I think that this way is really, can you relate with the real city that exists there? So as a challenge and as a creative challenge, I think that this is quite interesting. So then we had the Venice exhibition, our part. So this is the team that is with us doing the mapping of Macau. The team of the students from the master and the teachers. So you saw already the part, so I'll not talk too much about it. This is the video that we have that explains this, and we can see the different, the evolution over time. This is the scale 1 to 7,000, so city blocks are represented with quite a lot of detail. This is the president of IC with us on the opening. This is the team with our team with Wang Shu and Iwan Baan. And this is the book. So this is a tiny book that has many different worlds inside. So this is an integral part of the exhibition, and the photos that are on the book are the photos that are also on the wall. So let's have a look into what's happening inside. So we have an old town. We have the Portuguese school. We have this city that is quite appropriated. We have Iwan Baan reading the old town of Macau. The piers, but we also have this casino city where many of our tourists go. That is a very different city from the one that we saw before, with a very different scale. And we also have a new town. We have the new land reclamation. So we have this new town where a large part of the Macau population still lives nowadays, and we have a digital city that we don't yet know very well what is going to be in the future. And then let's listen to Wang Shu. So let's stop now with Nuno and let's listen to Wang Shu and Wenyu explaining what is their take on this, their curatorial approach to this exhibition.
今年策展概念，从我们第一次为这个策展这个澳门馆，我们到澳门，其实就已经有了一个基本的想法。因为澳门其实最特殊的地方是，它其实是很小、不大的一个地方，但是我觉得它至少在整个亚洲就特别有代表性。就一方面，它有一个保护的非常好的老城，就作为一个文化遗产，但是跟老城没有任何过渡的，就有非常高的这种新的现代建筑啊，尤其是这个像这种 casino building， 又比现代建筑至少要大1倍，就是这种剧烈的反差，我觉得就是澳门特别让人觉得有吸引力的地方。而且更有意思就是它的生活，就是这些按道理代表着完全不同的反差很大的生活，但你可以发现他们那个和平共处了，就是特别平静的一个生活的状态，我觉得这个特别有启发性。对，因为在整个的亚洲，包括所有的世界的发展中的地区，快速发展的地区，这些现象都在出现，但是社会矛盾啊、社会问题啊就会很多。但你在澳门就会发现，这个地方
他们都可以共存。
对，他们怎么能这么和
谐
平
的
共存？这件事儿我觉得特别有意思。
有兴趣。
完了，它就有很多很生活化的细节出来，你就觉得这个城市是有生命。所以我们提了个主题叫平行世界，就是实际上这个一个小城，包含了3、4个完全平行共存的这个世界，就像有几个宇宙共存在一起。
我想请两位讲一下，因为这次是有我们 USJ， 然后又有中央，又有Iwan Baan，就不同的跨区域的，也不同媒介的合作。你觉得这个有什么特别之处？还有什么影响？
我先讲。我们想通过不同的视角，然后去了解这个城市，其实是让更多的人来了解这个澳门这个城市。那我们通过摄影师的眼睛，就是我们做研究发现的这个在澳门不同的这种世界的存在，他可以用他的眼睛、他的镜头去发现，他把它留下来，然后给观众来观察。然后我们有我们自己的学生，中国美术学院的老师和学生，
还有
澳门的学校的老师和学生，让我们一起对澳门做一个现场的真实的研究，然后从他们，因为我们的人多呀，有好几十个人，他们可以通过自己不同的视角去发现澳门的角角落落，它也是一种我们说另一种平行世界的存在。因为你每一个人，他会有他自己的身体的感受，他会有完全不一样的视角，所以他所发现的这个澳门，又是另一个平行存在的不同的一个世界的澳门。我们想做这样的一个研究。
当然，这些参与的人都要有足够的思考的能力，
对，
有那种对现场的那种感悟的能力，但是要有一个方式来体现。摄影当然是一种方式，因为Iwan Baan是很好的建筑摄影师，就他能够理解我们的主题，但是他同时有自己的理解，所以他拍出来的东西既符合我们的主题，但又有很多让我们惊喜的地方。那我们的学生一样，像这样的大的这个模型，我们有30个学生，就中国美术学院我们建筑学院30个学生和3个老师来做这个。这个模型上面很多细节都是用手画的，所以你要仔细看的话，你会发现这是一个真实的城市，因为每一个学生都把在这个城市里自己观察到的东西，甚至有的地方抛段都画到人家家里去了，对吧？就是这种非常细腻的对澳门的这种调查，就通过它来表达出来。但光这个还是不够，因为其实现在世界的建筑学基本就2种方式，一种方式就是高楼大厦，另外一种方式像这种老城，坏一块拆一块，完了重新建一块，基本上是这样一个方式。怎么样能够和原来老的历史的建筑 产生一种现代的对话，不是说要拆掉重建，而是说就用它原来的老的建筑，它能自己生长出一种和它有关但是又是新的，我觉得这是一种完全新的建筑的思考和方式。所以这一次除了做调研之外，我让我们的老师和学生们自由地发挥他们的想象。所以这些白色的，为什么用白色的？因为这是思想，它还不是现成的建筑，哎，它是在脑子里的。我们用一个模型的方式，把思想直接让你看到，而且我们把这个思想做成模型，摆在这个我们澳门馆外面院子的这个墙头，让所有的人路过的人都要看到我们这里的思想。
然后探讨这种未来的可能性。
对。
因为所有的彩色的这部分是学生和老师一起，他们在澳门的那个研究之后呢，他把澳门的很多的生活的细节都用手绘画在了里面，它不只是一个把这个建筑画起来这么一个简单的事情。所以他们在澳门研究，他发现澳门里的人的生活。所以我们这个整个的这个展览，它是基于一个人的真实的体验和感受和对澳门的了解，然后把他的记忆和印象，因为他们回到学校里去画的这个是在澳门做的研究，然后一点一点的在这儿回过头来我们再看，就觉得特别有意思，非常的真实。那我相信澳门的人自己看到这儿，他们刚才看到说，哎呀，这是我曾经买一个钢笔的这栋楼，我是在这儿买的，他可以在这儿发现，他非常的就是贴近人的真实的感受。这个呢也是我们
还有一个很有意思的细节，我们的老师和学生在这里调研了1个礼拜，但是他们不可能记录下所有的细节，所以他们画这个模型画到一定的时候，发现，咦，这个部分我没有那个资料，完了立刻就写一个邮件给澳门这个圣约瑟大学这边的老师和学生，说我们需要这栋楼这个角度的，
他们再接着帮他们
一个照片，然后他们就帮着我们去拍一个照片再发回来。
这就是2个学校一起合作这个展览的优势，因为我们的学生毕竟对澳门一开始的那个启动的了解没有那么多，所以呢，我们的学生到了澳门之后，和澳门的学生他们是混合在一起，然后由这个老师们，就澳门的老师和我们的老师一起带队在做这个整个城市调研。这个我觉得是这次我们特别成功的一个地方。
当然，这也意味着，其实你看到这个模型的时候，你会想象这是一个巨大的工作量。他们那个澳门这边的老师和学生也在说，他们被震惊到，我说他们怎么会需要这么多的那个资料？几乎是每一个角的资料他们都要。因为这个真的是，一般人很难想象的一个工作。因为当然我们也是因为人多了，30个人，3个10人的思考，就到了这个模型里，每一个人画一个小角落，完了他能画到足够的丰富，我觉得这是澳门的特质，就它实际上是特别丰富的一个有建筑文化的地方，但是我们要通过这个方式把它表达出来，让大家意识到澳门有多丰富。
工作的方式也体现了这个丰富，
对，
其实都是对这个城市的表达。
对，完了你通过这些模型之间的这种新老的对话，就能把澳门的这个文化的那个潜力给调动出来，激发出来。
虽然时间很短，但是我觉得我们的老师和学生还是尽可能的，就是在探讨这个澳门整个城市的未来的可能性。所以在看到的这些模型里的这些白色的这个盒子，其实都是在讨论是不是有这种可能。因为现在是一个设想的阶段，所以我们没有给他们设定任何的限制，就是觉得，哎，你们觉得什么地方有这个可能，可以去做点什么，就是做一个小的设计。
但是有限定，不是说完全没有限定。我们的限定就是说，你一定是和澳门原来的历史的建筑在讨论、在对话。在这个过程当中，你会发现这上面有很多小细节，新的这个白的建筑上，这些细节其实依稀就是澳门本地的元素。它不是说从外面空降来了一个，它是在跟澳门真正的本地的建筑和文化还有生活在对话中产生的。
所以也许未来某一天，现在的研究有可能就变成真实的发生的一个事情，在这个城市里面。这个是我觉得我们这次做展览特别期望它不要只是止于这一次展览， 而是应该对这个整个的城市未来的发展能够有一定的积极的影响。这是我们这次展览的，我觉得一个期望值吧。
它也很直观，
对，
就是说你看这个模型完了，你突然意识到，你直接一瞥看到了澳门的某种未来，你看到未来了。好好，可以吧？
要不要跟我们的？
可以啊，讲两句可以的。我们也很希望那个澳门的观众，如果到了这个展厅，他们看到了自己熟悉的城市
生活的场景，哎呀，
完了之后，通过我们的这种表达和努力，他们会发现，哦，我们的城市是这么有趣的。
对，原来我们的城市那么的丰富。
完了，我们的城市是有可能有某种不一样的未来的。我觉得这是特别我们想传达给澳门观众的信息。
人的信息。
Okay, so now it will be faster. So let's see if I can move to the next. And the next is
what
Iwan
I
Baan.
always try with my photography, it's focused on also